My name is Hannah. I'm 38 years old. I'm married to the love of my life, Andrew. I met Andrew at university. We were taking the same elective course and working together on a project. With each meeting, we realized how much we liked each other. After the project ended, we continued to spend time together and soon started dating. Our relationship was very smooth. We had similar personalities and were very compatible. One of our most important shared values is our love for our families, and that's why, after about 6 months of dating, we introduced each other to our parents. Andrew's meeting with my parents went well, but his meeting with his parents didn't. Andrew's parents, George and Susan, were very reserved. They didn't try to get to know me or show any interest in what I was saying. At the end of dinner, I felt incredibly embarrassed. Imagine telling a joke and no one laughs, just stares. That's exactly what the whole dinner was like. When Andrew drove me home, he apologized for his parents' behavior. He explained that they were apprehensive about him dating at university because they wanted him to focus on his studies. I felt this was a valid reason, so I ignored it. About 3 years after we graduated, Andrew and I got married. We waited until we were financially stable and secure before we married, which was the right decision. Being able to spend without worrying about the future is a great form of security. After we got married, I noticed a change in Susan and George's attitude towards us. They had been cold towards me until our wedding day, when I mentioned where I worked in a casual conversation. I had a prestigious position at a well-known bank, which apparently piqued their interest. Suddenly, they became more open. However, this openness came with something unpleasant. They would make hurtful comments about me. Whenever Andrew or I brought it up, they would dismiss it, telling us to tone it down because they were only joking. Andrew and I aren't confrontational, so we put up with it. Then the requests for money began. I come from a low-income, middle-class family, so I knew what it was like to struggle. My family was only supported by its own members, so I never refused them anything. It started innocently when Susan needed money for a ticket. She hadn't brought enough and asked me to get some. I helped her without asking for anything in return, and she made no effort to reciprocate. Then they started deliberately forgetting their wallets at home or not bringing enough money whenever we went out, expecting Andrew or me to cover their expenses. Eventually, they asked us outright for money. We were spending more on them than on ourselves, so Andrew and I sat down to discuss it. I said, "You know I love your parents, but we can't keep giving them money and covering their expenses like this." Andrew agreed, saying, "Yes, I wouldn't have a problem if they weren't working and earning more than us. I just don't know how to bring it up. It feels wrong." "I feel the same way, but we could invest that money better, like buying a house," I suggested. "You want to buy a house?" Andrew asked, surprised. "Yes, I've always dreamed of owning a house," I replied. "Me too," Andrew said. "We'll have to stop overspending on my parents and live frugally to save up quickly, but it'll be worth it." "Oh my God, are we really going to do it?" I exclaimed. "Absolutely, I've always dreamed of owning a house with you," Andrew said. Andrew and I started saving the following month, setting aside more than half our paycheck. It was difficult at first because we were used to certain comforts, but we quickly adjusted. We also had to talk to George and Susan about stopping giving them money. Needless to say, they weren't happy about it. Susan asked Andrew bluntly if I was the reason for the change. Andrew told her it was a mutual decision and explained our plans to buy a house, hoping it would relieve us of their nagging. It did work. However, they stopped contacting us much. Andrew and I didn't let George and Susan's lack of communication bother us. We focused on our work and saving as much as we could. Of course, we occasionally tapped into our savings to fund something big, but overall, we stayed true to our goal. We got back on track with our savings and didn't let this setback discourage us. In about 2 years, we had saved around $76,000 in our joint account. We were both thrilled and amazed by our success. One weekend, Andrew avoided me all day. I was worried something was wrong, but every time I tried to talk to him, he would either shut up or say nothing was wrong and walk away. I gave him the whole day, but by evening, I sat down with him to have a serious talk. "Okay, I've given you enough time to figure out what's wrong," I said. "You have to tell me." Andrew tried to evade the question. "Nothing's wrong," he said. "I'm going to stop you right here. We both know that's a lie. Tell me." He hesitated. "Please don't be mad at me," he said. "What's wrong?" I said. "You did something really bad," I said. "Oh no, what did you do?" "It's okay, you can tell me. I won't be mad." "I gave my parents the money we were saving for our new house," he said. "What? Why?" I said. "They called me yesterday morning and said they have a lot of medical bills and other huge debts. They made me feel guilty for having all that money, so I gave it to them. I wanted to help them, you know." "Honey, I don't know how to feel about it, but if you're determined to help your family, who am I to say anything?" "Well, that's it. I really regret my decision." "Why?" "I was scrolling through Facebook this morning before you woke up, and I saw a post my dad wrote about them going on that luxurious cruise they've always wanted to take. Look, I was in a panic. I didn't know what to think. How could Andrew do this to us? And more importantly, how could George and Susan do this? We'd been so open with them about our struggles. Andrew had confided in them, and they'd given him advice on how to save money. Seeing them flaunting their lavish cruise on social media, thanks to us, was like a slap in the face. It made things worse when I checked our joint account. There was only $1,000 left. I stared at the screen in disbelief, my mind blank. All the money we'd saved over the past few years had vanished. It felt like all the years we'd lived frugally had been for nothing. I couldn't be angry with Andrew because he genuinely thought his parents were in dire need. But seeing them spend it on a lavish vacation was unbearable. Andrew looked miserable, and while I couldn't be angry with him, I also knew I couldn't just let this slide. He knew his parents had a history of deceiving family members and stealing their money. Usually the amount was small enough to be forgiven, but $75,000 was too much. I grabbed my keys and drove to his parents' house. I knew they wouldn't give up easily, but I was determined to get our money back. As soon as I parked in their driveway, I took a few seconds to prepare myself for the confrontation. I walked to their door and rang the bell. Susan answered. "What are you doing here?" George called from inside. "Who's there, love?" Susan replied. "It's just Hannah." "What's she doing here?" "Ask her." "Hannah, hurry up, we don't have time for you." "Because you're too busy spending our money?" George said, approaching the door. "I told you she'd come for the money. Look, Andrew gave it to us honestly. Only because you cheated him." "We didn't." "Yes, you did. You lied about having to pay exorbitant medical bills." "It wasn't a lie. We were indeed in debt, but we paid it all off. I'm glad we were able to help. Now give us the rest of the money. It was given to us, so we have the right to decide what to do with it." "Okay, would you do us a favor and not bother us again?" "Thanks." Susan slammed the door in my face. I was stunned. I tried ringing the bell again, even banging on the door, but they ignored me. I sat in my car, seething with anger. I started the engine, drove out of their driveway, and circled around until I calmed down a bit. George and Susan's audacity was shocking. How could they feel no guilt for stealing from their own son by deceiving him? I remembered how miserable Andrew had looked when I left, so I drove home. By the time I arrived, it was almost 2 hours later, and my phone had died almost as soon as I'd left the house. When I walked in, I saw Andrew pacing back and forth in the living room, looking very worried. He didn't notice me, so I cleared my throat to get his attention. He looked at me in surprise before running over and giving me a big hug. "Oh my God, thank goodness you're okay," he said. "I was so worried about you." "Why?" I asked, surprised by his relief. "You were gone for 4 hours and you couldn't reach your phone. You didn't reply to any of my messages either. How could I not be worried?" Well, that was my fault." "I'm really sorry," he said. "It's okay," I said. "I'm just glad you're okay. Where did you go?" "To your parents' house," I said. "My parents?" "Why?" I asked. "To ask them to give us back our money," I said. "Oh, Hannah, I'm so sorry." "Calm down. I understand what you mean, but you need to be more careful." "Okay, I will." "Did they give you your money back?" "No." "Oh, yes, remind me why this doesn't bother you." "Because I have a plan to force them to give us our money back." "Is there any way I can help?" "Oh, of course. This plan depends on your help. Andrew and I had a friend who worked at the tax office, and I worked at the bank where George and Susan held their accounts. All I needed was a letter from Andrew's friend to freeze their accounts. I was eager to see how long George and Susan would stay away from me once they couldn't access their money. Andrew's friend owed him a huge favor because Andrew had used his connections to help his friend get his current job. Andrew called him and explained the whole situation. His friend was ready to provide me with a letter ordering the freezing of George and Susan's accounts. I spoke with him on the phone the next day at work and gave him all the necessary details about Andrew's parents' accounts. We reviewed the letter together, and he told me I would receive it within a week. The timing was perfect because it was just before George and Susan's cruise. Since their trip was all-inclusive, they probably wouldn't even notice their accounts were frozen. During this extra time, I could also work on filing a lawsuit against them for lying and theft. I knew George and Susan would contact me when they discovered their accounts were frozen. I would use the case as leverage to force them to repay the full amount. A week later, George and Susan left for their cruise. They made sure to send Andrew a photo of themselves on board, just to add insult to injury. Andrew was furious when he saw the picture, and frankly, I was furious too, but I knew it would be further evidence of their crime when I filed the lawsuit. When they finally returned, Andrew and I grew increasingly apprehensive each day, waiting for a phone call from his parents. It took about a week before they called. "Hello, darling," Susan said, her voice incredibly sweet. "Darling?" Andrew asked, puzzled. "Did you hit your head on something?" "Don't be silly, love, of course I didn't. Although, yes, there it is. What's wrong?" Susan said. "Don't be rude. But yes, George and I have a little problem. And why should I help you?" Andrew said sarcastically. "Did you tell me not to bother you?" "Hannah, please, Susan pleaded. It's about our survival. Our bank account is frozen for some reason, and since you work at our bank, could you look into it? I'll think about it. Please, we're begging you to reactivate our account somehow. We don't have enough money to last the weekend. Oh, that's difficult. Anyway, I'll see what I can do. I ended the call with a malicious thrill at Susan and George's desperation. But my plan wasn't complete yet. I intended to deceive them for a while before revealing the truth. I wanted them to feel the anxiety and betrayal I felt. The following week, Andrew mostly ignored their calls. When he did answer, they asked for money, but he always coldly refused, claiming he was busy. I carried on with my life as usual. Susan called me daily, asking if I had any information on how to unfreeze their account. With each passing day, I could sense their growing panic. Somehow, they managed to hold out for another week. By the second week, I began ignoring their calls altogether, answering only rarely to tell them I couldn't talk at the moment. It was satisfying to play them like they played us. But eventually, I grew tired of the games and told them I had information for them. They enthusiastically invited Andrew and me to dinner at their house. All their rudeness and mistreatment vanished. Suddenly, they were incredibly kind to me, even prioritizing me instead of ignoring me as usual. Andrew and I struggled to stifle our laughter at their pathetic attempt at appearing nice. After dinner, I took a file containing the information out of my bag and placed it on the table. Susan and George looked at me nervously. "What have you discovered, dear?" Susan asked. "Yes," George added. "Will we ever be able to get our account back?" "I don't think so," I replied. "At least not for another 2 months." "Wait a minute," Susan exclaimed. "What? Why?" I said with a wry smile. "The funny thing is, I completely forgot I did this while you were on your cruise." "What are you talking about?" George demanded angrily. "I froze your account," I revealed. "What? Are you angry? Why are you doing this?" Susan cried. "This is what you get for manipulating your son and stealing from us," I said calmly. "You're a monster." George yelled. "No, you two are the monsters. You knew how much owning a house meant to Andrew. You knew how hard he worked to earn that money. You knew all the sacrifices we made. And yet you robbed us. How many times do I have to tell you we haven't lied? Unblock our account now," Susan demanded. "You lied. Just because you exaggerated the lie doesn't change the fact that it was a lie. Your account will remain frozen until you pay us the full amount," I insisted. "We'll sue," George threatened. "I dare you to. I've already filed a lawsuit against you. If you don't pay us the full amount, I'll pursue the case, and then you'll have to do more than just pay up," I countered. "How could you do this to your own family?" Susan pleaded. "Please, Susan, don't even try. We'll give you a full month to sort this out and pay the money," I said firmly. Then I took Andrew's arm and we left. As soon as we sat down in the car, we burst out laughing. We'd done it. The looks of shock and betrayal on Susan and George's faces were worth it. They'd know not to mess with us again. Andrew tried to apologize again, but I assured him everything was fine. We'd gotten our money back, and at the same time, we'd made his parents taste the bitterness of their own medicine. I don't know how or where they got the money, but George and Susan paid us back a week after that dinner. I was overjoyed. Susan sent me a polite text asking me to unfreeze their account, which I gladly did the next day at work. Andrew and I spent the next few weeks getting our new house ready and moving in. We kept our contact with Susan and George to a minimum. We'd been duped once, and it would be embarrassing to let them do it again. We're both family people, and Susan and George knew that, which is why we didn't let them take advantage of us again. They never apologized for what they did, so we didn't want to deal with them until they did. Andrew and I live happily in our beautiful home, and we're even planning to start a family. At one point in my life, I truly thought I should just give up, but this experience taught me that if you take control of your life, it will unfold as you wish.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, गए जो दिन सहारे थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं, तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है, दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है। अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं, तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है, दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है। बस रह गया दर्द का असर।